Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and last week many of you saw that we had a small contest on Your Black World where I wanted to hear ideas coming from you about the Black agenda. You hear me talk about my version of the Black agenda, and but that's not the only version. That's not the only reality out there. And so what we did was we just had a little contest where we allowed people to go to our Your Black World Facebook fan page and state what they believe to be the Black agenda for the 21st century. And the person whose response got the most Facebook likes, I know that sounds silly, but it showed that people were really digging what he had to say, was a brother out of Wisconsin by the name of Joe Kellam. And so I brought Joe in and to discuss his points for what he thinks the Black agenda should be. And so first of all, I want to say congratulations, brother, and welcome to Your Black World.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Now, let me ask you this before we begin. Now, what do you do in Wisconsin, and what part of the state are you from?
I'm actually originally from a small southeast suburb in Wisconsin. It's about 40 miles south of Milwaukee, called Kenosha, Wisconsin. But I've been living in Milwaukee for about 8 years now.
Okay, interesting.
Well, I've been studying here. I've attended several of the colleges and universities here, and I do a lot of activism work in the community.
Ah, okay. Well, it was very nice. Well, I appreciate you, brother, and I appreciate what you do. Now, let's start with number one. The first item that you list, which I think is definitely going to get a lot of reaction from people, is you mentioned re-segregation. So,
Absolutely.
So explain that one.
And I want to start off by saying, I mean, you kind of hit on the point of why we have to discuss these things on a national level, because just the mere mention of resegregation or a Black community, in essence, it creates these anxieties and it makes people nervous, and not just white people and not just non-Black people, but especially for the reactions that I've seen for over several years, is that among Black people, we have this anxiety about trying to do something for ourselves independent, not only out of the concerns that we may not be able to succeed, but the reactions that we may spur in other people, specifically white people, that will make white people nervous, will make them scared. They don't want to support us if we go out in front and try to do something for ourselves and by ourselves. So that's part of why we do need to have the discussion and a serious discussion about it, because it's a part of the healing process that we need to go through as a community, obviously. And I've been seeing this language being used recently myself, that there's some serious healing that needs to take place in the community for us to move forward. And part of the healing process is us getting over this anxiety that we have to use the language and to really be meaningful in what we say, that we're going to do something for ourselves by ourselves.
Interesting. Well, you're absolutely right. I think that when Black people get together, people get nervous. Sometimes Black people even get nervous about it because they don't want to be identified as being associated with other Black people. When I first took the job at Syracuse, I remember I had a colleague who admitted to me that she deliberately distanced herself from me, not because of anything I'd said or done, but because she didn't want to be seen as a Black scholar. And I thought that was just a little bit interesting, kind of sad, and I think that, if you look throughout society, when Black folks get together, people have a reaction. Now, so the next point that you brought up is, the support of Black entrepreneurs or Black entrepreneurial development. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, and it's a great segue from the point that you just made, that no other segments of society that we have a group of people, whether it be those of the Oriental descent, or whether it be German people, Italian people, or Middle Eastern brothers and sisters who have been in the States now, you don't see them having this anxiety about preserving their culture, about, being independent from mainstream society. So they are able to work within themselves and within their communities and develop a strong economic base so that they can fund their own schools, fund their own grocery stores, fund their own businesses, and support each other. And that's why the resegregation piece is so essential, and it's a great segue into the Black entrepreneurial development, is because I know in Milwaukee, I think in 2009 we were 48th out of 52, so we were on the bottom of Black entrepreneurial development in all the major cities that they surveyed across the country. We don't have the entrepreneurial development to support ourselves, to hire ourselves. You'll see other communities, they are the primary employers of themselves. White people are the primary employers of white people, and that's natural. So it's a natural idea that Black people should be the primary employers of each other, so that we're not picketing and going and begging people for jobs who aren't necessarily interested in hiring us. And I've actually seen reports coming out today that we still have this problem for where white men with no credentials and a criminal background are preferred in terms of receiving opportunities to be interviewed for jobs over Black men with high credentials and no criminal background. So, and I'm not blaming, society or blaming white people or whatnot. This is to say that we have to take the responsibility of being the number one employers of ourselves. That's a natural thing for all groups of people to do. And until we do that, we're always going to have these high unemployment numbers when we're dependent upon other people to hire us. So we need to focus on producing things that can create jobs for ourselves, like all other groups do.
Well, I like what you said, because I remember, Malcolm, had told us a long time ago that only a fool will go to his enemy or his oppressor and beg him for an opportunity to feed his children, or beg you to educate his children, or beg his enemy to give him a job. And he always said that as long as we walk away from the idea of being independent and owning the land on which we stand, we will always be looking like fools sitting in front of some white man's store holding a damn picket sign. And I like the way you bring these issues up. You boldly went to that space that people are afraid to go with resegregation, but you don't bring it forth in a way that says that you're angry at white folks or that you hate anybody. You're bringing it forth in a way that simply says that we have to command our self-respect, that loving Black people does not mean that you hate white people. It just means that you want Black folks to have self-respect. And I think that's a wonderful idea. And just so you know, brother, we're in lockstep on this. I mean, you and I just met today, but it's like we've known each other a million years, because everything you're saying is exactly what I tell my daughters. When we talk about their future, I say, well, really, what you majoring in college kind of matters, but it doesn't matter that much, because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to find a way to make your own money, even if you're working for somebody else in your spare time. Now, the last piece that you mentioned is you mentioned going back to African-centered education. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and again, you keep offering the great segues into it, because it's important for people. And again, with Black people, these issues, they resonate so loudly, and they create this anxiety that when you say, African-centered curriculum, or when you say we need to teach our own kids or something like that, they automatically gravitate towards the negative interpretation of it. And we have to get over that when we say, we need to teach our kids about our history, that doesn't mean that, we're going to be harping on racism and we're going to become militant and all those things that just, and for me, it's an indicator that we have self-esteem issues when we're so consumed by how we're going to be perceived by the greater society if we focus on ourselves. That's a huge problem for us. So we have to have enough self-esteem where we take pride in educating ourselves and our children about our history, such that it's not a concern about how we're making the outside community feel or mainstream society feel. We have an obligation as a people, like Native Americans. They take so much pride in educating themselves and their children about their great legacy and the historical contributions that their relatives and their ancestors have contributed to society. Italians the same way. People throughout the entire world, they really take pride in the contributions that their ancestors have made. Now, as someone who has been studying at a predominantly white institution, I've studied the Aristotles, the Descartes, Immanuel Kant. I've studied a lot of the Europeans who contributed a lot to society. I had to, in this past 2 years, take it upon myself to educate myself about the contributions that our African ancestors have contributed prior to the slave trade, because that tends to be something as well that's a misconception that's fed to our children in these institutions that, well, we're going to start educating you from the point where the colonialists came to Africa and then brought you over. There's no emphasis on the great empires of the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th centuries in Africa that were very civilized, very much civilized. Our kids have this self-esteem and negative self-concept because they feel as though their history begins when they were rescued from Africa in huts in a loincloth and bones going through our noses, and that's absolutely not true. But what I have seen is that the institutions in the United States have no interest in implementing across the board education that focuses on the historical greatness of our kids. They're going to keep experimenting with reforms this, reforms that, and we know what it is. It's them telling you, well, I don't see myself reflected in this curriculum. So until we do that and do it from a point that is genuine, not to say, well, we're just going to incorporate hip hop in the curriculum, or we're going to incorporate these teaching models. That no, teach us from Imhotep all the way down today to Dr. Boyce Watkins, so that our children can have build a positive self-concept about themselves.
Wow. Well, in addition to teaching anything about Boyce Watkins, I think first they need to teach about Joe Kellam, because you were just dropping some knowledge, brother, and I really, really loved what you had to say. Because it is very, very interesting that we built our society predicated on this idea that the best thing you can ever accomplish as a black man is to be accepted by white people. That's why for many African Americans, unfortunately, they believe that Barack Obama becoming the first black president is literally the greatest achievement of any African American in our nation's history. And it's not to say that what he did is not remarkable. It is certainly remarkable. But what if he'd taken a different stand on certain issues and wasn't popular among white Americans? And white folks didn't like him. What if he was like a Malcolm and said, I want to fight for my people? Why wouldn't that achievement or that set of achievements be just as valid as the achievements you get by becoming president and doing what you need to do to get white folks to vote for you? So I agree with you. I think that this idea of going through life kind of seeking approval from our oppressors is counterproductive, dysfunctional, and sick. Because if I would love to live in a world, brother, really, I would love to live in a world where my worst enemies came to me for validation. If they came to me and said, hey, Boyce, we really need you to tell us good things about ourselves for us to feel good about who we are. Can you tell us something good? Well, I'd say, okay, I'll tell you something good if you do what I say. But if you get out of line, then I'm going to say bad things about you and make you feel bad about yourself. So that's why I think that this is what all these issues tied to is, in part, at least, really restoring our collective self-esteem, being happy with who we are, being proud of who we are, and not caring what anybody thinks. And then the economic development piece is beautiful, brother, because basically when you're making your own money, you have a tremendous amount of freedom and power that you don't have when you're dependent upon somebody else to give you the things that you need in order to survive. So, because as long as you remain enslaved in that capacity, every time the situation calls for you to stand up, somebody will be standing over you with a hammer telling you to sit your black butt right down. So I want to say thank you very much for these great ideas. And I really like what you had to say. I like the way you communicated it. And so I'm going to talk to you more in the future, man, because I think that your ideas are extraordinary. I also invite you to write with Your Black World. And because I want your ideas to be shared with as many people as I can help you share them with. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I appreciate you again.
Oh, vice versa. And thank you all for checking us out at yourblackworld.com. And these lessons and this message, I think, is so important. We have to be evangelists for excellence. We have to take this message out and become the lights that shine in the world, that lead other people to a better existence. You are your own greatest black leader. So even if you can't lead on television, you can lead in your own social circle. You can lead in your own families. You don't have to wait for people like us to lead for you. You can lead yourself. So let's go get it done. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.